Dr. Samir was one of the most respected neurosurgeons in a leading hospital. Patients called him a miracle worker. On paper, he was successful in every possible way, but in his mind, something very different was happening. Every time he finished a surgery, instead of relief, he felt doubt. What if I missed something? What if I failed and just didn't notice yet? Even when surgeries were perfect, his thoughts never let him rest. Samir had always been like this. From the beginning of his career, he believed success was fragile. One small mistake could destroy everything. That belief slowly turned into constant fear. At first, it pushed him to work harder. But over time, it became something darker. He stopped sleeping properly. He checked patient reports again and again. He rechecked decisions he had already confirmed. Even at home, he couldn't relax. His mind kept creating problems that didn't exist. Everyone noticed the change. But Samir always replied the same way. I just need to be careful. But deep inside, he was exhausted. One evening, after a long surgery, he sat alone in the hospital lounge. His hands were still slightly shaking. The operation had gone perfectly. Everyone praised him again. But his mind whispered, "You were lucky this time." He closed his eyes tightly, trying to silence the thoughts, but they only grew louder. A young intern entered the room quietly. She had been observing him for weeks. "Sir," she said softly, "can I ask you something?" Samir nodded without looking up. She hesitated, then said, "You are one of the best surgeons I've ever seen. But why do you always look like you are losing a battle inside yourself?" The question hit him harder than he expected. For a moment, he had no answer. Later that night, he stayed back in the hospital. The building was quiet. He walked slowly into an empty operation theater. He stood there under the bright lights, staring at the table where he had saved so many lives. And for the first time, he asked himself a question he had avoided for years. What if the real problem is not failure, but my fear of it? That moment stayed with him. The next day, something small changed. During a surgery, when doubt tried to enter his mind again, he paused, took a breath, and reminded himself, focus on the present, not the fear. It wasn't magical. The thoughts didn't disappear instantly, but he didn't feed them anymore. He also started speaking about his fears to a senior colleague, someone he trusted. To his surprise, the senior doctor smiled and said, "Even the strongest minds get trapped by their own imagination. The key is not to believe every thought you think." That sentence stayed with him deeply. Slowly, Samir began to change. He stopped overthinking every decision. His mind became quieter. Not because life changed, but because his thinking changed. Weeks turned into months. He still worked hard, still cared deeply, but now he carried peace instead of fear. One evening, the same intern saw him again. This time, he was smiling after a successful surgery. She said, "You look different, sir." Samir replied softly, "Nothing outside changed. I just stopped letting my thoughts lie to me." And for the first time, he truly meant it. Moral lesson: negative thinking doesn't always destroy your life from outside. Sometimes it quietly destroys your peace from within. Your thoughts are powerful, but not always true. And the moment you stop believing every negative thought, you start taking your life back.